All right. Welcome to the news morning 6:30 GTV. Pretty cold outside by me, about 30 something degrees. It is freezing. Um but we're going to go over some of the morning news and kind of talk about it and see what's going on. Right now, the Ukraine explosions rock Kiev as a week after Russia strikes.
Deadly aerial attacks from Russia continuing to rain down on Ukraine's capital city of Kiev Monday during morning rush hour. Officials there say the weapons were mostly kamikaze drones supplied by Iran. Iran has denied providing Russia with the weapons. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko labeling the Russian attacks as terrorism.
More than 200 apartments building destroyed from Russians attack. Were killed a lot of people, civilians, unguilty people.
This Ukrainian parliament member calling for a global response to Russia's assault.
We're asking also for the further sanctions for this country that is actually, selling drones to Russia.
And Russia's military confirming a warplane has crashed into a residential area on the Sea of Azov. The pilots reportedly ejecting after the plane suffered an apparent engine failure. Also today, the U.S. and NATO kicking off nuclear training exercises in Europe. The long-planned annual nuclear drills will include dozens of aircraft, including U.S. B-52 long-range bombers. Russia holding its own nuclear exercises this month, which could include live missile tests. President Vladimir Putin continuing to stoke nuclear fears over U.S. and NATO support for Ukraine, calling a potential direct conflict of.
So I got to stop right there. There's a lot of few things there. Um, Putin is getting to the age of he wants to make a mark. This is a very we don't know if this man is having delusions, delirium. That could be something else. This could be quite scary. Um, Especially how they used to use dead man switches back in, I believe, in the 80s, so that if the president or someone of high power was killed or assassinated, that a dead man switch would release and it would release the nukes against the United States. So, and these were ran also by computers, dead man switch computers that were from 1970, which computers been around for much longer than that. But the main thing is now he's talking about nuclear strikes. And when you start talking about nuclear strikes, it's it there is no end to it. It's fire, 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 and then if you fire, then United States is going to fire upon you, and then nuclear war breaks out, and then we have radiation poisoning, mass casualties. And if you were thinking the COVID was bad, really it's nothing compared to this, because this would stop all transportation. This would also um, antagonize war. Really, people would take advantage of this. They would first start coming after infrastructure, communications would be the number one thing. Cyber attacks would be the next thing. Um, but when they're going after civilians like this, he is at a point that I don't know if he is sane. So let's go ahead and keep watching. Let's see what else is going on.
A very dangerous move which could lead to a global catastrophe. The Kremlin says it's sending almost 9,000 soldiers to Belarus to bolster its strategic border with Ukraine. Meanwhile, the U.S. announcing another $725 million more of assistance for Ukraine that will include Humvees, weapons, and ammunition. The total amount of U.S. aid to Ukraine now at $17.6 billion since Russia invaded Ukraine. We're now learning 108 Ukrainian women were freed in a prisoner swap with Russia. Ukraine, in turn, releasing 80 Russian civilian sailors and 30 military personnel. Ika Jachi, ABC News, Washington.
Okay, so at least that they're trying to be peaceful and let civilians go. At least Ukraine is. Um, Obviously, that is not the same with Russia. I mean, we got Russia's kamikaze drones. So
An aide to
let's see.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has carried out more strikes against Kyiv, this time hitting what he describes as an energy object. This follows Monday's wave of deadly drone strikes, which targeted the capital and cities in the eastern Sumy region. The White House says the United States will hold Russia accountable for war crimes. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says the EU must sanction Iran for supplying Russia with drones. Tehran claims it's isn't exporting weapons to either side in this conflict.
A team of journalists and security guards run for cover. They've spotted a drone overhead. Anti-aircraft batteries try to shoot it down before it can strike. But it's too late. This is the destruction the drones left behind.
Absolutely
One side
terrible.
of an apartment block
Absolutely
reduced
terrible.
to rubble. Among those killed in the attack was a pregnant woman. A week after Russia renewed its attacks on the capital, the airstrikes have already become a new normal for some Kyiv residents.
Last Monday was scary, but now it's like we're used to it. Air raids every day. You wake up, look at social media to see what's going on. And so this morning we woke up, and after 10 minutes or so of alarm, we heard the first explosion.
And life in the capital goes on despite the looming threat. I feel really bad. I have 2 children and our morning started very loudly because the area where we live near the train station was hit. But after the air raid was finished, I had to go to my job. I drove to my work, but there was an air raid again. So I'm trying to stay close to a shelter, but I'm still outside. While
Wow,
previous
look at
Russian
that.
attacks on
That
Kyiv
is
were
terrible.
mostly missile strikes, this latest assault was carried out by what appear to be Iranian-made so-called kamikaze drones. In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Ukrainian army managed to shoot down 37 of the drones, and that aside from the capital, 25 other areas of the country were hit. Iran has denied supplying drones to Russia, but calls have mounted for sanctions, while protesters gathered outside the Iranian embassy in Kyiv for a silent vigil, to make clear who they hold accountable for the strikes that have brought back fear to their city.
Yeah, that is absolutely terrible that's happening. So we have this going on in Ukraine here. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. Georgia, gun policies, economic. You know, news is really just
It's
Yeah.
been brutal.
Let's talk
and
about some
I understand
inflation
that.
and guns
That's why I've been
here.
calling for a tax cut in the short term to put money in people's pockets. JD said that that was a gimmick, but it's actually an opportunity for us to put more money in people's pockets.
He says that I believe the tax cut is a gimmick. I think a tax cut's a great idea, but when you propose it, Tim, it is a gimmick because in your time in Congress, you voted to raise taxes I think allowing properly trained teachers to carry firearms can be part of the solution. I think increasing funding for school resource officers can be part of the solution. I think a very, very important part of the solution of reducing crime, both in our schools and in our streets, is making sure, and it sounds crazy common sense, but making sure that we lock up violent criminals.
That it is a very risky proposition to have a person that's a school teacher trained to shoot in that environment with all those kids running around. Like, that is somebody who needs to be very well trained,